And welcome to the Inside Britball podcast. My name's Andy Taylor and I'm joined by Stuart, Isaac and Kiwi as usual as we come to bring you the results from last week, and we look a little bit further ahead to what's going to happen this week. But first we want to go straight to Stuart before we get into all of that, because you had your commentary debut, didn't you, in Nottingham Caesars and the Manchester Titans this weekend?
Yep, kind of made my own bed really here. I'm never saying that I am sure there's going to be a live stream ever again. I obviously said that the Caesars normally live stream their games, and lo and behold, when the podcast went out Friday morning, somebody from the Caesars reached out to me Friday afternoon and was like, there might not be a stream this weekend. And for those of you that watched it and heard my explanation, they didn't actually have a lead commentator. Sean and Lloyd, who were in the booth with me, probably would have done it themselves, but they didn't have a lead commentator. So the producer reached out to me and goes, do you fancy doing it? I was like, you know what? Not got anything on. Let's go and watch Caesars versus Titans.
Brilliant. And we'll get into that action for sure. But I didn't watch it all, but I've watched some of it because I wanted to get an idea of how you got on, and you got on really well, mate. You did great. And I know we've got a couple of comments in our DM saying that you gave some valuable insight from an officiating point of view as well, which was very helpful. Well done on that. I know from my own sort of experience going down to the T Midlands game that it's not easy. So well done on that one. But are we all doing all right though? And we're doing all right, yeah. We don't normally do a weekly catch in, but go on.
A few bumps and bruises from Sunday, but.
Well, we'll get into that as well, because I know there's plenty that you want to talk about in a result that you probably don't want to talk about. But and Kiwi, we've obviously got you here because we've got some really good conversation to have around NWFL as well. So let's crack on. Starting off, as always, with the Adult Contact Premiership. Isaac, I'll give you first dibs before we get into the finer detail that Stuart will give us for the Caesars Titans game. But fire away. What did you take away from these results?
Yeah, so it's going back to last week when I spoke about the Hertfordshire Cheetahs against Cambridgeshire Cats game, and that game is going to really decide who's going to, potentially be relegated this year. And it was as close as we probably expected these two teams to really be against each other. A 10-6 win in favour of the Hertfordshire Cheetahs. It really showed that these two sides are going to be that close. It's going to be close between these two, especially next time when the next game against these two is, I think, in a couple of weeks. So that's the one thing I really took away from this weekend.
Yeah, week 15 is when they next meet, so a few away from there. It couldn't be tighter going into that game. Cambridgeshire host, knowing that they need to overthrow a 2-point deficit and make it a 3-point swing, a 5-point swing in their favour, and then they don't get into that playoff, that promotion relegation playoff or whatever they're calling it. And well done to Hertfordshire Cheetahs. They've got that one in that win column. They just need to make it 2 in a few weeks' time, and then they can secure their place in Premiership next year and hit the recruiting trail to try and probably improve on that offense, because that defense seems to be feisty. It's just the offense doesn't seem to be able to score as much as they would probably like to. So definitely something for them to aim at there. Again, Kiwi, I'm going to keep Stuart on hold because he can give us some finer detail of the game that he commentated on. But anything else stand out to you here other than what Isaac mentioned there about the Cheetahs?
I think just obviously London Blitz going out and getting that convincing win over Rushmore kind of really, I think, we sort of came into the season thinking that it was probably going to be London, Bristol Aztecs 1-2. But if you look at the table now, you've got London Blitz sitting there in the 2 position. So it makes that final stretch in the second half of the season interesting to see who's going to tie up that second spot in the Prem South, in my opinion, between the Aztecs and the Blitz. Obviously, I think they're both playing well. They've both got the ability. So it is going to come down to those head-to-head matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Blitz and Aztecs was tight enough, wasn't it, for us to suggest that they're close. The only remaining sort of question that we had was what's the gap between Blitz and Rushmore, and we know what that is now, don't we? They've got to play each other again, of course. There's a redemption there for Rushmore at some point, but we kind of know what the top 3 and the bottom 3 is, we think, after that result. So, Stuart, what insight can you give us into this? Closer than other games that the Titans have pulled out recently. Caesar's obviously not getting on the board with an offensive score. What insight can you provide us for that game?
The scoreboard probably doesn't do the game justice, if I'm really honest. The Caesars probably drove the length of the field in most quarters. They just couldn't execute when they got inside that sort of red zone, when they got inside that 25 to 15 yard area around the end zone. They had a couple of 4 and outs. They got a couple of interceptions. They got a fumble as well. And it was just like, they drove really, really well. They executed really well in their drives. And then when they needed to punch it in, they just weren't clinical enough to finish that off. To be fair, their defense held up fantastically well. They have got an awesome defense, both run stopping. And unfortunately, just the one big splash play was the first touchdown. And I think that made the difference throughout most of the game, because then the Caesars were always playing catch up. And then Hafiz, their running back, one of the league leaders as well, the Manchester Titans, he was the one that got their second touchdown. And that was only about a 20-yard run. But he kind of traversed the field and went from the far hash to the other side pylon, and really worked for his touchdown. So if Caesars were a little bit more clinical, I think they would be, and I think this goes for most of their games as well, they would be more competitive. I think they might have another 1 or maybe even 2 wins to their record. And to be fair, going back down onto the pitch afterwards, they were like, you know what? It was mostly our own doing. We can tighten that up and go again for the next couple of games. So they actually have to bounce back very quickly, because they're at Manchester this weekend, which we'll come on to in the fixtures. So they sort of get a quick turnaround to review the film from both angles, and then they go again against the similar foes this weekend.
So I didn't see the game. I had a theory, and it's a theory that we've talked about on this podcast a little bit, that the Titans have such speedy wide receivers that they can blow the top off a defense. So the teams that are going to do well against them are the ones with a good DB core. We know from last Brit Bowl, seeing the Caesars that they play, 4 DBs usually with 2 linebackers. Is the theory correct, or is it just that Manchester had an off day and Caesars played well all around? Have they got good DBs in it, and that theory's kind of sticking, or is it still a theory?
No, they do have good DBs, but unfortunately, I was talking to one before the game, and he had a cast on his hand, and he was sitting on the sideline, and he was saying that most of their DB core, the upper echelons, maybe the starters, as you may call them, most of them are injured. But the guys that were on the field shut down most of the Titans' deep game. I would put it down to the defensive line. There was about 3 or 4 times the Titans quarterback was put under pressure and overthrew or underthrew his receiver on deep passes because he had a burgundy jersey in his face. They did really well at completing the short game and getting those little screens or the little hitches out to their wideouts, and that's what picked up 10, 15 yards. But, Caesars kind of kept a lid really on that deep game because they were able to put pressure on the quarterback and get him to get rid of the ball quicker than he wished.
I mean, anyone who's gone up against the Manchester Titans in the last, what are we, 25? So in the last 6 years, certainly since the Bloomfield Carlton era, it was death by 1,000 paper cuts. I've said it thousands of times that they would take the 4 each time, the 5 each time, and then draw you in, and then try and take that shot over the top. Second and short. If they ever had that, that's where they were going. And it feels like that's slightly different without Luke Carlton there, and maybe Sam Bloomfield, and maybe some of those GB wide receivers, and a bit more over the top of defense sort of play. But they've obviously got an amazing run game as well, haven't they? Which it seems to be relatively young and potentially inexperienced, but that's just without having insight of who each player is, obviously.
I think the biggest difference is the tempo, where obviously when Luke and Sam were there, they were literally wanting to snap that ball within 15, 20 seconds of it being blown dead from the previous play. I think they're a little bit more methodical this year. They're still running that sort of no huddle hand signal offense, but they're probably not executing it to as a higher speed as they have done in the past. And that comes with learning and the changeover. So I think that speed will get back there. But, you know, it's going to take time, isn't it, when you lose the amount of players and coaches that they have lost over the last 6 months or so.
Yeah. No, very interesting. I wanted to pause there, obviously, for a little while to try and give as much insight as we can, because we had the luxury of that this week. We got given some feedback from the Coventry Newcastle game, didn't we, as well? We got told that it was a very defensive game for the first part of the game. Coventry Phoenix had a very good defense on the day. They had a stuttering QB, didn't they, to start off with, a couple of picks. And then you'll be able to say the name because you've probably got it in front of you. They swapped their QB, went to a certain QB who's a ex Chorley Buck, now Lancashire Buck, obviously, and then they didn't throw another pick for the rest of the game and scored a number of touchdowns, which is the way to do it, isn't it? So, what was that name again? Can you remember?
Yeah, the new QB is George Hadfield. Yeah,
right. I was remembering it right. Brill. So a stable mate of Charlie Martin, by the sounds of it, from the Manchester Titans. So, yeah, it's a good program up there in the northwest, isn't it? Not biased at all. So yeah, we've stopped there on the Prem for a little while longer than we would normally. Let's rattle through the others as well and pick up what stood out for us. So, Isaac, we've had enough of Stuart now, so I'll give you first dibs. What stood out for you in the North and Division 1 here?
Well, first, it's a big congratulations to the Yorkshire Rams, who have won the NFC North Division after their 26-6 victory over the Merseyside Nighthawks. A game that really showed how strong the Rams are this season. We've seen a couple of times that Merseyside know how to shut down sides and that they can battle against anyone, but it proved that Yorkshire were just that little bit too much this week. And then also that game in Scotland, we spoke about it last week, that we're probably going to see a more equal game, but that was nothing but with the Inverclyde Goliaths winning 34-6 against the Clyde Valley Blackhawks. So no, that Scotland division, it pretty much seems like it's going to be Glasgow, Inverclyde, and then Clyde Valley. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because after these results, that you've mentioned two of them there at least, which is you've got Yorkshire Rams sitting there in the second seed currently, having tied up that division. You've got Glasgow sitting in the first seed, and then we've got Inverclyde Goliaths, who have now confirmed playoffs, who are currently sixth seed, I think, if I remember correctly. Stuart, you'll be able to correct me. I'm just going to have a quick check myself. No, the fourth seed at the moment. So they'll be sitting there in fourth seed with a nice home tie in the quarterfinals, if it's called that. But then we've got this weird game that happened in the Midlands as well. Stuart, did you get any insight from this?
Not an awful lot. One person is going to be particularly disappointed because the only thing that I've seen really from this game is a dropped interception in the final quarter. That I think actually led to Northampton scoring in the last minute of the game to tie it up. So yeah, it's just, I don't get, to have one tie a season is probably unfortunate, but to then end up with a second one in the same season is disappointing. I'm sure the staff over there in Sandwell will be looking at it thinking, missed opportunities again. I haven't seen much of it, if I'm really honest, but it did surprise me to see Sandwell come up a little bit short against Northampton, and sort of stutter a little bit there towards the top of that Midlands division.
Yeah, let's not talk about ties just yet. Go on, Kiwi.
I was just going to say, two draws. Like you say, I saw a second draw come out of this division for Sandwell, and I was like, what? Stuart says, you might see one, but for two is just odd, right? And the thing is, as we kind of Stuart just said, stuttering to the top of the division, those games are kind of, against the teams that are to the lower half of the table that they've drawn. So I don't know whether it's a dip in form as the season's gone on. Is it injury? Is it just not executing, as Stuart says? Maybe someone can give us some information from Samwell. It would be interesting to know, because we seem to start with a bang and then seem to have dropped off a little bit. So, it's kind of, for sure, looking at that division, at least the top kind of three, it's all up for grabs, really, the 2 playoff spots. Nothing is really locked down there at all. So,
Gotta give them some props, though, haven't we, Kiwi? Because they've come up from Division 2 and they're now sitting at the top, the only undefeated team in that division. They're doing all right for themselves somewhere, aren't they? That they play Northants twice now.
They might have them back to back.
Sure.
I know Northants were saying that they've got a string of like back-to-back games when I officiated them a couple of weeks ago.
Just double checking now. Last game of the season, Northants. Okay, fine.
But
Sorry
like I said, that's what I mean. They came in and started with a bang and really kind of made us sit up and go, wow, they've come up and they're really playing well. And then now we've got kind of midway through the season. I just hope it's not that their form's dropping off and they can maintain it, because as you say, to come up from Div 2 and do so well, when we often talk about how big the division can be between Div 2 and Div 1s particularly, I hope it's not that. Maybe, as Stuart says, just a little bit of poor execution or things, not quite clicking as well as they did at the start of the season. But hopefully they can come back and, finish the season the way they started and, win the division, because that's what we like to see, right? Competitive games. And we all love a fairy tale story of someone coming up and winning the division, right?
Yeah, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? And it would be a story to tell itself if Samwell managed to achieve that. Let's have a little look further south. Stuart, I'll give you first dibs here. Talking of ties.
Yeah. Southeast. Does anyone want to win a game? I mean,
what the hell?
Slightly controversial here, because we have had a few images sent across from the Olympians versus Gladiators game of the state of the goalposts, shall we say. And although, by rule, you don't technically have to actually have goalposts, believe it or not, that we have something called like stop, report and sanction, or just a report and sanction. And not having goalposts is just a report and sanction. So BAFA can do what they like to the Olympians for the state of their goalposts, but BAFRA can't, and they're just there. As long as they get the agreement of both head coaches, the game can go ahead, believe it or not. So we've been reliably informed that the game went ahead and that field goals were not allowed to be taken. So you have to go for it on fourth down. And that has led to a 0-0 tie. So could teams have kicked field goals? Were teams in position? Again, from the messages we've had, we're led to believe that they probably were. And this game could have gone a slightly different way if there had been goalposts. But at the end of the day, the record book says a 0-0 tie. And it keeps London Olympians at the top of the Eastern Division, with Colchester now playing catch-up with the East Kent Mavericks above them and the Olympians then above that.
Yeah, and just to tie off that point about ties, let's see what I did there. Kent versus Essex ended up in 14-14 tie as well. Kiwi, anything else stand out to you here in this allotted results?
Lots of result. Obviously, tough day at the office for the Berkshire Renegades, but we know that Portsmouth are good. They're sitting second in that division, probably not a surprise. Hopefully they can, pick themselves up and come back from it. Having that kind of defeat's always a tough day at the office, anyone who's been on the side of it, so hopefully they can. But yeah, other than that, maybe that West game was close. Again, interesting in terms of the 2v3 in that division and how close that is, whether it'll play out how I don't know if they've played the return fixture yet. Have they played each other twice yet? I'm not sure.
No.
I'm testing my memory. So that
yes, they have. Yeah.
Okay.
2-0 Stolland. Sorry. It was 48-20 first time around. It was then 15-17 this time.
Yeah, so Bristol have obviously made some improvements. I suspect that probably means they might not be able to land themselves into the second position unless something goes horribly wrong for Solent. But yeah, a close game, which is tough, but also good to see on the other hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Solent have had 3 weeks off, haven't they, because of that incident that they had on their home field. So I suppose that's been tricky for them to get off the mat with a loss to South Wales and then come back to this, which is Bristol Apache have, in recent years had a very good defence at the best of times. They didn't show up at Solent, but recent history suggests that they do. Isaac, anything to add to the rest of this card, or should we move on to Division 2, where you'll have lots to say, I'm sure?
Just move on to Division 2.
Division 2, let's go. Brilliant. Let's have a look then. Because that top fixture doesn't read well if you're a Wakefield District Raiders player, does it, Isaac? But I'm sure you can give us some more valuable insight.
No, it doesn't read well at all. A 43-6 victory for the Gateshead Senators. We never really got started, the Raiders. We conceded a touchdown on the first play, like a 40-plus yard run, and it kind of just set the mood for the entire afternoon. We couldn't really get anything going on offense. We had a couple glimpses here and there, but on a drive there were never more than 2 or 3 first downs. Our only score came from a special teams play where Gateshead fumbled the ball and we picked it up and scored. But apart from that, Gateshead really started to flex the muscles, especially in the second half. Starting to pass it a lot more, doing a lot more different stuff. We tried running slightly different playbooks and different schemes and all sorts. And, we were missing a lot of players and players arriving late and all sorts. So not a great day at the office for the Raiders.
Stuart, anything else stand out to you across this division?
Specifically the North Division, or are we looking down to the Midlands as well?
Yeah, across Division 2.
Leicester just took care of business and continued their formidable performances this season. Some people we've seen since we put our graphics up this afternoon on Tables Tuesday, people asking about points differential and what's the highest points differential, because they're currently sat at plus 216 points, aren't they? They're actually the stingiest defence across the entire adult contact division, with only conceding 3 points so far. So I think they're just 1 week away now, aren't they? If they beat Lancashire next weekend, they'll get a golden C next to their name. We're still not sure 100% when playoffs will happen, but we'll get all that sorted for you in graphical format and out to you as soon as we can, and as soon as they're all solidified.
Yeah. Kiwi, anything for you, or should we move on to NWFL?
Yeah, no, nothing for me to add there.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, just to point it out, if anybody's listening in, we also had Ipswich beat Ouse Valley 20-15. So congratulations to them. They keep up, don't they, with Oxford sitting at the top now, and then Hereford took it to Plymouth. I saw Plymouth put something up on socials around injuries, and they're still trying to recover from that, aren't they? But those two Southern Division 2 divisions are looking very interesting going into the final few game day weeks for sure. Brill. NWFL Kiwi. First up was probably not as one-sided as you probably predicted this time last week, but it certainly was one-sided.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, did somebody say it was only 12-0 at half-time, I think, if I recall.
I think that's what I saw somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. So, interestingly, whether Manchester's defence showed up or Birmingham's offence, failed to get going right out of the gates, a 12-0 at half-time, I would say, is a relatively good half for Manchester, given we know how good Birmingham are. Obviously, in the second half, they ran away with it. Things started to click. The Birmingham that we know came out and ran away with the game a little bit. But, yeah, if I was Manchester, I'd be taking heart in the fact that, you held them to a 12, only 2 scores in the first half. I'd say that's pretty good start to the day. And kind of build from there out and keep going for the rest of the season. But, yeah, definitely tough for Manchester in this division and not a surprise. And, I don't see it being likely that they'll get a win, unfortunately for them. But keep building, keep getting better, and take the small wins where you can, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be good to know why, wouldn't it? Why why are Manchester finding it difficult, especially this year? They did obviously take a number of beatings last year as well, didn't they? But what is it? And it would be good to get some insight and hear what the difficulties are. But at least they're there. At least they're turning up. They've still got some very good players.
And that's the thing, right? Like, kudos to them. They're still there. They're still playing nines. We've seen so many teams not achieve that this year, and we know how hard it is. And they had a tough season last season as well, playing nines, but they've stuck it out. They're still there playing and, flying the flag for teams in the Northwest and playing nines. So, as much as it's difficult, and I know how hard it is to keep a team and a squad together when you've got kind of these heavy losses, but, full credit to them for still turning up and still playing nines and giving girls and women that opportunity to play nines, right? Because playing full field football is so different to playing sevens.
100%. Yeah, well said. Let's have a look at the sevens then, because we had the Kent Exiles. They were first time out, wasn't it, this week? And they were hosting. Yeah. They hosted the Peterborough Royals and the Cardiff Valkyries. Looks like Peterborough came out 2-0, probably as expected, but I won't take the words from you there. 1-1 for Kent, and then 0-2 for Cardiff. What's your thoughts on this then?
Yeah, and I think that's what I said last week, was that I was expecting Peterborough to go 2-0 in this, but the fixture that was going to be interesting was that first one, Peterborough-Kent. Obviously, they came out and showed that they're, probably going to run away with that division, although looking at the tables, I believe there's some question marks around that, but with Peterborough technically sitting in second place, but that's just because of the amount of games and the percentages. But and I think it's points against, isn't it? So obviously Peterborough haven't played Cheetahs yet. So that'll be the game that we're waiting to see now.
We play American football, not soccer. We don't accumulate, or books. We don't accumulate points. We have a win percentage. You're both on 100% or 1, as we put it, and it's the next tiebreaker, and that's currently sitting at average points conceded. So Hertfordshire, you're at 2, and Peterborough at 4.8. I make that bigger than 2.
Thanks, Andy. And obviously, the tiebreaker that normally comes between those two is head-to-head. But given they've not played each other yet, we have to take that out of the accounting, shall we say? So that's the fixture that we're looking to see here. And then I think it's just looking at kind of the best of the rest, really. Cheetahs, Kent, again, interesting. And then I think the other 3 teams in this division may struggle a little bit, but assuming go into playoffs that we're going to get 4 teams, that 4th spot, in my opinion, is probably still up for grabs, really. So, that's what I'm looking at here to see how the rest of the season progresses and where the rest of these teams stack up.
Interesting. And we also had a game day go on, but obviously only one game happened this time around due to Caledonia pulling out very, very last minute. And we had one game, Cheetahs versus Newcastle, ended up 17-2. Anything to add there for this result?
No, just to say that I think it's not a surprise. Cheetahs have been around a while. Again, they're an established side. What's looking interesting for me is when we see them play Kent and when we see them play Peterborough in the coming weeks, then that's where we're looking at what happens at the top of that division. But I do probably expect a Peterborough to win out there. But, I'm here to be surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got clipped. We got clipped asking for chaos, and we didn't get it where we asked for it. But we definitely got it at a point in the unders. So let's get straight into the unders, because we are here for chaos. And we got a little bit of it. So, Isaac, we had an amazing slate of under-19s action this weekend. We cannot go through all of it. What stands out to you?
If I say a lot stands out,
there's so much.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit too much for me to take in. It's that South London Renegades win against the London Warriors. It's 46-6 to the Renegades. I don't think anyone's really saw it coming. The London Warriors are, established across all formats to play against. They they barely lose. And for a South London Renegades side who, I didn't know existed until this year, really. But that's them to host them and welcome in and just beat them the way they have done. It really shows, that the South East isn't just like any other conference that the London Warriors are in, and that they've got to be able to fight.
Yeah, the class of that division is clearly the London Blitz this year. We need to stop and pause and take in and tell everybody that they are currently scoring at just shy of 60 points a game against their division rivals. They have conceded around about 2 touchdowns a game, which this is nines, isn't it? This format.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to do that in nines. I know it is a full side field. It's obviously a bit more space and stuff, but to concede as few and to have approximately 45 points a game on average difference in their scores, that's dominance for the London Blitz, isn't it? And by far the biggest surprise, I would say, on that scoreboard that's in front of us is that 46-6 win over the London Warriors. So on that, we've obviously got to say congratulations to the Edinburgh Napier Knights, who secure the division crown in Scotland there against their other two opponents. They've beaten both of them twice, and they can't come back from that. So that'll definitely be a highlight for Mr. Stoddart, that we've obviously had on this podcast before, and his crew up there. Stuart, any other of these results stand out to you? I must say to those who are listening, Caesars Sandwell didn't go ahead. Caesars walkover, and then it looks like Swindon are out of the season, so Rushmore got a walkover there against Swindon as well.
I'm going to pick out the other game in the Midlands division, the Birmingham Lions getting a win over the Northants Knights. It kind of puts those 3 teams that aren't the Nottingham Caesars in that division on sort of almost a level playing field. This is something we've asked for clarification for, is the under-19s playoffs, because we're not quite sure what's going to happen with 3 divisions. Last year there was just 2 divisions and 2 teams, and they played 1-2 versus North-South and the other way. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with these 3 divisions in U19 North, to see how they then sort of filter the teams down into playoffs. But if there is a second seed out of that Midlands division, it could be now any one of those 3 teams. Probably not Sandwell with their sort of loss and their forfeit. It might be difficult for them to come back, but the Knights and the Lions could sort of fight out for that second spot in the Midlands division there. Yeah,
well, Sandwell don't have postseason because of their walkover this week anyway, regardless, do they? So yeah, no, there's plenty of other great results in there, and we just can't go through them all. Otherwise, we'd be here for 3 hours, and nobody wants that. So quickly on to the under-16s, because there's some surprises in this as well. So Isaac, take us through the Midlands then, where we saw Coventry go 2-0. We had Birmingham go 0-2, Northants go 2-0, and Nuneaton go 0-2 as well.
I mean, for me, this was just what we really expected from this division, really. Northants continued the way they have done all season. Coventry, showed what they can do as well as a youth side, but it's still a close game between them and Birmingham. A 19-18 victory for the Coventry Phoenix really, shows how close and contested that division is, but still no real surprises in this tournament.
Yeah. It looks like Northants can tie up the division if they go 2-0 in their next tournament. If my quick math serves me well, I haven't looked at head-to-head against Coventry, but presumably they have it. But we'll double-check that for next time. Let's have a look at the Southwest, where we can say for the first time on this podcast ever, Poole Dolphins won, Stuart.
They did, for the first time in two years. They went 0-8 last year and 0-8 the year before. And to be fair, they very nearly got the second win as well. They were 6-6 versus Swindon at one point. They had a late pick 6, we've been told, that they brought back down to about the 3-yard line and punched that in and scored. And then on the ensuing drive, one of their sort of rather rookie young running backs got the ball stripped out, so they turned that ball over and weren't able to sort of go back and even attempt to get sort of a tying score. But yes, massive congratulations to the Poole Dolphins, who I believe if we go back and listen, I said may well cause an upset in the first game.
I was going to say, I'm sure I heard this.
Yeah, and then you mentioned being clipped earlier. I thought that's what you were going to say for the first time ever. We've actually been clipped and quoted, but somebody at Swindon Storm was quick to point out that we said maybe there might be an upset, and they just took care of business. So fair play to the Swindon Storm for winning both of their games down there, and as we always say, just taking care of business and putting themselves on top of that division and getting a big crown on their pretty logo put out on social media this weekend.
Yeah, 100%. Congratulations to them. Postseason is happening. They are the Southwest Division champs for 2025. And it's nothing personal, guys. We just like chaos. It gives us something to talk about. But lastly, but by no means least, in the under-16s, Isaac, we've got the Southeast, where we actually saw London Blitz come out undefeated, amongst other things across this division. Take us through it.
Yeah, so they came undefeated by beating Hertford Cheetahs 30-19, and also a draw against Ipswich Cardinals, 26-26. Again, you got Kent, who also came out 2-0. Kent, again, there's a side that are synonymous with under-16s. They've been to finals there multiple times. I think they're there pretty much every year, especially now we're playing that level. They were there all the time. The Blitz coming out undefeated helps their playoff hopes as well. So, no, it's going to be definitely going to be interesting one next time these sides come together.
Yeah, sometimes when you're a very good defense and you concede for the first time all season, it could be something that would cause you a little bit of concern. But Kent still took care of business against their rivals. Hertfordshire Cheetahs 12-6 there, and Ipswich were able to put 12 on them, which is something that nobody's done this season yet. So, Ipswich obviously had a reasonable day, but Kent very deservedly the division champs there, having already sewn that up with one tournament left, 6-0, still only conceding 18 points at under-16s the whole season. That's an average of 3 a game. That's good going. And as you can see, all those 18 points are on screen in that tournament. We should probably also say that Cheetahs qualify as well, but they finished their regular season, haven't they? So, Stuart, you were about to
funny. It's funny how you mentioned their record, Isaac. Somebody commented on socials saying that how they flipped from last season, and I went back and looked at our spreadsheets from last year, and they actually finished 1-7 last year. And I'm like, okay, how have they flipped that around? So massive. We always say congratulations in our posts, but we'll put it over podcast as well. Huge congratulations to everybody involved that has turned that 1-7 program round into currently a stall, as I get there, 6-0 program, and could potentially go 8-0 into finals day. And who knows how deep they could go and whether they could get that trophy at finals weekend, perhaps.
Yeah, we're just trying to get confirmation from BAFA what the seedings are going to be, what the under-16s plans are going to be. We will provide you with those details once we get them, because we're ready to go with in the hunt type information, and if the season ended today type information, because we know you all love that. So once we've got it, we'll give you it. But that was obviously felt like a bit of a relatively straightforward weekend for us. Thanks for everybody who reached out and replied when we got hold of them. We had a little bit of a wait for some under-16s details, didn't we, on Saturday? But nothing new there. But a really good weekend for us to go through, and we've got another humdinger coming up. So if you guys are ready, we'll have a little look and pick our favourites that are going to come up this week. Right? We've got Adult contact, we've got NWFL, and we've got under-19s Division 1 and 2 this week. So no under-16s as far as we're aware. So, Stuart, I'll give you first dibs. What's your favourite game coming out of the Premiership this week?
I think for me, I'm probably going to go with the replay of this weekend. I was umming and ahhing whether to go south, but I think I'm going to go back to the Titans Caesars. And just to see how both teams have adapted and how both teams sort of develop on what they ran this weekend. Not sure if it's going to be live streamed. They live streamed their EKP home game, but they put it out very late. Granted, they want to sell tickets and get bums on seats at Bellevue Stadium. So, try and get there if you can. But if you're a million miles away, or you're on the south coast or in Scotland and want to watch it, just hold out and don't book your hotels to travel down and watch it in Bellevue. It may well be live streamed. Coventry EKP as well is going to be interesting. But I think I'm going to start by looking at the Titans Caesars game.
Isaac, what about you?
I mean, the South Division as a whole this weekend, it looks pretty straightforward for most people, I think.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
There's not really one game to pick out because there's a clear divide, and it is Bristol on the two London sides, and then Hertfordshire, Rushmore, Cambridgeshire. So the South this week, I think it's going to be quite a straightforward one for most, for every team.
Based on what we've already got, right? It would take a shock, wouldn't it? It would take an upset for us to see something differently. But we hope for it. Mm-hmm. I think it's just probably fool's hope, probably, or false hope that we're after, because we've got the Bristol Aztecs versus the Cats, we've got London Blitz versus the Knights, which we've just seen last week, which was a one-sided affair according to the score. Didn't see it, and then we've got Cheetahs hosting the Warriors. So we're looking a little bit more further north for the interest, Kiwi. But what are you thinking?
I think I'm with the Coventry EKP game as well. I think that's where it could be interesting. Obviously, Coventry have been doing well, but we know EKP have been a bit up and down. So, I'm interested to see how this one comes out, because it's really about that. It's not so much about this game specifically, but that second seed between EKP and Manchester at the moment, isn't it? So, interesting to see where this might end up, I think, for me this weekend.
Well, Phoenix need this for the head-to-head, don't they? They need to win it. They need to win it by 3. They lost by 2 up in EKP, so Coventry need that to be able to not only sew up that head-to-head, but also keep up with the Titans. Or certainly, we'll see where the Titans Caesars goes, and then let's see what happens in the reverse fixture this time around for the Titans and Caesars for sure. But a big game for Coventry. They've got to get some offense going, I would say, if they want to keep this. I think that I was just looking then. An interesting stat for them is that they're currently winning by less than a touchdown a game. That's probably a bit too close for comfort, isn't it? For somebody who's pushing for a division title, albeit a win's a win, they'll tell you. I'm sure anybody will tell you that. Let's quickly look at Division 1 then. We're not going to go through them all, Isaac, but let's have a little look. What stands out to you across this slate of games?
We said this a couple of weeks ago, but Sheffield need to win. They haven't won yet this season. They're coming against a strong Scunthorpe side who are still in the hunt for the playoffs. Especially after the Yorkshires win last week, they need a win more now. But Sheffield, just to have any sort of, hope of not playing in that buying game, they really need to win this weekend against Scunthorpe.
A loss to Scunthorpe puts them in the relegation game. So that promotion relegation game, which is looking like it's going to be a tough game based of who's going to come up in their alignment, whether that is Humber, as you say, whether that is Leicester, depending on proximity to those teams, and that those two are not going to be easy for Sheffield, are they? You've played Humber, haven't you? And you'll have an insight on that. And Stuart, have you seen Leicester live? Have you?
I haven't yet,
Right.
but based on their points differential, I think they're going to be a really tricky team to play. And having officiated Sheffield, I think it depends how they turn up on the day and can take care of Leicester. But that'd be an interesting one for me.
Tough ask. We're not trying to say that it's a done deal, but it's a tough ask for Sheffield to travel to Scunthorpe and get something there to keep their Division 1 hopes alive. Anything else? So Kiwi, any of these games stand out to you?
I think for me, I was tossing up. I couldn't decide because there's so many to choose from. But I think for me that London Blitz B game versus Sussex Thunder is interesting. You've got those two teams both, sitting on 2 and 3. really close together in the table. So, that's always going to make for an interesting game, in my opinion, to see who can come up on top there. And then similar in the Midlands, where you've got Birmingham and Shropshire, to see kind of where that shakes out. So, yeah, for me, they were the two that I think maybe a little bit different in the choices, but
two different ones. Yeah.
We're not talking about the top of the table, but we're talking about teams that are close, that are more probably evenly matched, which may make for some better games.
Mine was going to be the Bulls Revolution. I'm going to put Stuart on holder for a minute, because I wouldn't be surprised if he was going to go for one of those two. But so Bulls are on a streak, right? What are they on at the moment, Stuart? I know they lost to Samwell, but they beat Northants, which was a shock, wasn't it? But can they use that to keep the momentum going? They need a 2-point swing, so they need 3 points in their favour, and they then hold the head-to-head against Shropshire, who are down at the bottom with them. So if Birmingham don't want to be in that dodgy playoff game that could be against probably Leicester, then they need this win more than any. This is another final for them. So 3-point victory for the Bulls is their goal this weekend against Shropshire. Easier said than done, but it's a need must if they want to give themselves some hope for Division 1 life next year. Stuart, have we stolen it from you?
You haven't. To be fair, Kiwi stole it from me in the Blitz Thunder game. That's the one that I picked out. The only other thing I will add is that I've seen on the Essex Trident's social media page is that they're having a charity day in aid of Motor Neurone Disease Association. So they're having what they call a pink day, or pink week, they're calling it at the moment. So they're sort of got all sorts of activities going on at their game day. So if you're down there and you've got a spare couple of quid or a spare £5 note, throw it into a bucket for a really good cause down at their match this weekend.
Let's get that shared out, Stuart. We should definitely make a big deal of that. That's great stuff. Good luck to them on the day, because it's hard enough getting a football game together, let alone getting everything around it together, isn't it? So best of luck to them. There's plenty of other games here, guys. Sorry, we're not going to do a 2-hour podcast on every single game, but no, there's plenty going on, including a associate game up in Aberdeen, where the Glasgow Tigers are going. So we will swiftly move on to Division 2, because there's plenty of games going on here as well. Stuart, I'll give you first dibs this time rather than people taking your pick.
Do I call out Darlington Wakey? Do I think that's going to be an interesting game? I think Isaac might be looking forward to it and thinking, this is another opportunity for Wakefield to get another win on the board. We've seen sort of Darlington hot and cold this year. Again, we've also seen Wakefield hot and cold, but then they have played Humber and Gateshead, haven't they, and had a bit of a tough time of it. So I think that could be interesting to see who comes out on top of that one. And then I think Leicester just take care of business in the game in the Midlands there and seal off that division this weekend. And then they can look to build then for playoff football and hopefully a promotion push from their side.
Mm-hmm. Isaac, what about you?
Yeah, it's got to be the Darlington against Wakefield game. I mean, I know I'm going to be involved in it, but last time out it was a close game, which I wasn't involved in. So hopefully this week you got two sides who are at the minute struggling. Wakefield lost last week, Darlington lost the week before. Both sides need to bounce back. Darlington have quite a small squad now. They've lost a lot of players. They're going to have to rely a lot more on grit. Same with Wakefield. It's not the biggest squad in the world. It's going to be a really, really interesting game in the North East this week.
You need it to keep up with Gateshead, obviously, who you lost to this week. Yeah. You'll definitely need that. Looking a bit further south, Kiwi, I don't want to take any away from you, but I still don't know what is happening in the Southwest. I don't know what's going on. I think they're trolling us. Is Swindon good? I want to know if Swindon good. That's what I want to know. Can Cornwall score 40 points a game again? Because they've never done that, as far as I'm aware, but they did it last week. So, yeah, I'm really interested to know, what are we going to see? Are we going to see Cornwall beat Swindon and then they're all on 400? I don't know. That's what I'm interested to see slightly further south in in Cornwall there. Kiwi, any others that we haven't mentioned? Liam,
I was
looking for a win?
yeah, that's what I was thinking. This is their best shot at getting that win this season, I think, right? Is this return fixture issue, so hoping for them that they can come out and get that win. But yeah, that's kind of the one that I sort of thought feels a little bit like last chance saloon for them to come away with that win, doesn't it? So, and we all like a little bit of chaos, and we'd like to see everybody at least get one win on the board. So, I'm rooting for them. But yeah, I think it's a tough ask, but you never know.
I think it's just, we all know well, not we all do. I can only speak from my experience, but I've been involved with a team who have gone many, many games without winning, and it's so hard to keep them together. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to keep a program rolling in a game where we're paying to play. It's very difficult, isn't it? And that's why we encourage these wins for those who are winless. And I was just having a little look to see if I can figure out the last time that they did win, because I bet you it's been a while, which is just not ideal for any.
Have they won any since they came into the league formally?
Yeah, so 2023 they went 4-4 in 2023.
Right, okay.
I think that was their first competitive season, if I remember correctly. No, it wouldn't have been, would it? Because they were an associate team in COVID, weren't they?
Yeah, but then
2022 was their first season.
Yeah.
They went 2-5, then they went 4-4, and then they've gone without a win for the last season and a half. So it's not tracking well, but we are rooting for you. And it's no offense to the Lincolnshire Bombers. We just would like to see both of you with one on the board.
And they're both sides as well now with youth programs. Lincolnshire Bombers have had their under 16s and 19s programs for many years, and Lee now have their partnership with Wigan as well. So if these two sides can really start doing well, it's only going to help the youth game as well and just help everyone else grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have they got contact yet, Wigan? They haven't.
Well, they did. I think they're like an associate under 16s.
Associate, right.
I remember having like friendlies with them and all sorts. Yeah.
Yeah, because they've been around for a while with Flag. I know for sure it's certainly one of the options. If my little boy ever gets into it, that'll be one of the options near us, amongst many. But no, definitely good point. NWFL Kiwi. Let's have a little look at the nines action that's going on this week. So we've got Solent versus Manchester twice. Hold up.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's quite right. Not sure.
Let's take that away. So we've got Solent versus Manchester and London Warriors versus Teesside.
Yeah. When you look at something and I'm like, is that my eyes playing up? What's going on there?
That's okay. We'll take it off.
Yeah, the game that I'm dying to see is this London Teesside game, right? We know that London lost to Birmingham. They've won against Solent. Teesside beat Solent. So we're kind of sat here going, this could make or break who's going to take that second seed. And I think technically we said before Teesside are sitting in that second spot at the moment just because although they've both lost one, it's 3 versus 2 games, the percentages. Again, the accounting really on that one. And this is the fixture really where we're going to be seeing who of those two teams is actually better. And just between us, I'm quite excited to see that maybe Teesside can challenge London and we can see something different happening in this season and a potential different Brit Bowl at the end of the season. That's what I'm here for. I'm excited. I know Teesside feel I don't give them a lot of love sometimes, but I'm excited by what they're doing. However they're doing it, we shall leave it at that. But I'm excited and I'm hoping and I'm rooting for them to get that win over London and really put the cat amongst the pigeons in this division.
I'd love to get your take on something though, Kiwi. So there's this tournament happening, which we are head-to-head, double header, whatever you call it, happening up in Sheffield Hallam, right? That's a London Warriors home game and a Solent home game. Obviously, that means that Teesside don't have to travel the breadth of the country to face London, etc. But it's giving up a home game for London and Solent, which is obviously cheap, probably than the travelling, but it's giving up a home game. You've got a feel for them, haven't you? With this, albeit they're doing this to improve participation and making sure that travel doesn't put everybody off.
Yeah, and look, I think it's hard, and it's a frustration, and just, I guess, the way that this Nines division has ended up with the teams that we've lost, the split of the teams across the country. We've lost, when you look, there is just, they are so spread out this year, really. The only two teams that are relatively close are kind of probably Teesside and Birmingham, and that's not really that close. So it's really hard, and I understand what they're trying to do in terms of making sure that travel isn't a factor and looking at these neutral venues and these double headers. But yeah, it is tough on Solent, who have travelled to Manchester, then they travelled to Birmingham, and now they're travelling to Sheffield. It does seem like it's a lot on them. So, hopefully they can continue playing the way they've been playing, and they can come away with another win at this fixture, which is a return of the one that we saw, I want to say week 1, was it? That first game?
Yes.
But
well, it was first game of NWFL. That was week 3.
Yeah. It's hard to find a balance, I think, and I can only assume that the teams agreed to it at the start of the season in some context. Now, whether they knew where the games were going to be played, because arguably they're probably further north than what you would expect a neutral venue to maybe be. But having been there and played different fixtures in different seasons and different teams, some years travel is tough, and then other years usually you maybe get it a little bit easier. I'm not going to go back to my many conversations on my many trips to Scotland this year. But again, it's kind of one of those, unfortunately, where, especially in the women's game, with there just not being the amount of teams, you do kind of have to commit and be willing to do the travel just to make sure that the game survives and we get the games played, right? Because nobody ultimately wants to lose out on game time at the end of the season.
And this year they're getting more. But I just wanted to touch on that because it's an odd one and it's a difficult one and has checks and balances with it, doesn't it? But your thoughts are very much appreciated. Let's quickly move on to, lastly, is the under-19s, but we've got the Division 1 up first. As we've already mentioned, Swindon, we think, are out for the season, and so there's an away walkover, not a walkover for the Hertfordshire Cheetahs. What have we got going on this week, Isaac, that interests you across Division 1?
Yeah, so it's that game up in Scotland. We saw this game last week, the reverse fixture of it. Highland are now hosting the Edinburgh Napier Knights. It's going to be a really interesting one. We see how strong Edinburgh Napier are. We saw it in the Bucks season that's just gone, that they won the Scottish Division unbeaten. And again, they're going to go to semi under 19s in pretty much the same kind of level of what the Bucks level is. So that one's going to be a really interesting one to watch, to see if Highland can bounce back and see if they can make a playoff challenge.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Napier Knights have beaten Highland twice. However, they've both been in Edinburgh, and the first game was a 2-pointer difference, scoring well over 100 points in the game. And then you could see that last week that it was a difficult game for them as well. So very interesting to see what happens when you change the venue and Edinburgh have to travel up to Highland for that. So yeah, on the face of it, not so much. When you dive a little bit deeper into what's gone on this year, then it becomes a little bit of an interesting one, doesn't it? We've got the 1-1 Lions after their win last week against the Northants Titans as well, which will be an interesting tie to see, because I think we've just seen that tie this week, which is 24-12 to the Lions. And then we've got an interesting Manchester tie going on in the north there as well, which again, we haven't seen that many games in this division yet, so we don't really know where we're at with it. But we've certainly got two very interesting teams coming together there. I'm sure Titans will be looking to try and sew up that division sooner rather than later, but we'll look to see what goes on then. Let's have a little look at Division 2. Hosted by the Wembley Stallions, the South have got the South East Legion, also known as the Kent Phoenix, depending on who you speak to. And we've got South Wales Warriors and Wembley Stallions and Oxford Saints turning up to this game day as well. What are we looking for here, Stuart or Isaac, whoever wants to take it?
I think for me, it's going to be that Southeast / Kent Legion team, and whether they can remain undefeated. They're coming up against two sort of teams that, you know, could challenge them, I think. Stallions we haven't seen yet, so we don't really know what they're going to put out on the field. South Wales, we've kind of seen, but kind of not, in that tournament that didn't happen. It got going, but didn't happen in the end, didn't it? So yeah, they'll probably be looking at those two fixtures thinking, do we really know what's coming? But I think they'll just look after themselves. From the conversations that we've had, they're a club that are really well run, and they put out a video on socials, I think it was yesterday or even today, of one of their team leaders, I think Michelle was her name, just literally doing everything on a game day or a training day. Like at one point she was setting the field out, at one point she was making teas and coffees, at one point she was doing first aid. And we all know clubs that have that sort of person, and kudos and pat on the back and give that lady some flowers at the end of the season, because those are the sort of people we need to keep in our sport. But I think, it's definitely something that the Southeast and the Kent Legion will be wanting to really focus on themselves and get 2 more wins on the board there in Div 2 South.
Well, the wild card is Wembley, isn't it? So the wild card in this tournament is Wembley, because we ain't seen them. So this is the first, we're going into the beginning of June, and we're seeing Wembley Stallions under 19s for the first time, haven't we? And were they active last year under 19s Wembley? I don't think they were. I'm just going to check my notes to see if they were. I'm starting to think they were now in Division 2.
I think they were.
Where they went 4-4. Yes, they just missed out on the final day for postseason. So they're a 4-4 outfit from last year. Maybe they've matured and grown a little bit as a team, and now they've got to come up against some established programs there in the Oxford Saints and South East Legion. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on. They'll be the 2 fixtures, the results that come in that I'll be interested in when they come in for sure. That's everything. Brilliant. Great stuff, guys. We've gone through quite a number of games there that happened this week, and we've got obviously the fixtures coming up this week, which is getting busier and busier. We're heading full throttle into postseason mode, really, aren't we? Even though it feels like it started a couple of minutes ago. So once we've got those confirmations, we'll start sharing them. We'll start not educating, but providing information to those out there who are interested. We are getting multiple DMs clarifying tiebreakers, clarifying postseason information. What does this mean? We love it. Keep it coming. We're happy to answer stuff where we've got it. We just don't have confirmation of the unders postseason at the moment. So as soon as we've got that, we'll start sharing it all, because we're here for everything, rather than just 1 or 2 formats. So we'll give it all, and we'll let you know as soon as we've got it. But we will be back again next week to break down what we've just previewed and look towards week 11. And before I put my foot in it, I'm going to check that it isn't a GB bye week or anything like that. It isn't. Brilliant. That'll do. So we will have a full slate as well. And I'm pretty sure it's probably a flag weekend coming up in the next couple of weekends as well. So got some work to do there. Anyway, anything that I've forgotten, because I need to check before I get out of here and I've completely forgotten somebody or something.
No, I think
it's just me that does that.
Awesome. Great stuff. I'm glad it's not me then. Brilliant. Stuart, Isaac and Kiwi, thank you very much again for your time to break it all down with me. And thank you for those who are watching, thank you for those who are listening. And we will catch you again next week, probably same time, same place. Thank you very much. Take care.